NASA leader Raila Odinga wants and is ready for dialogue with President Uhuru Kenyatta. According to a statement by his advisor Salem Loan, Mr. Odinga is ready for a 2008 style of dialogue, but with a caveat. Top of the agenda of the dialogue must be electoral justice. And welcome back to News Center. That is our focus in our discussion that we'll continue with shortly. But before then, the second People's Summit to mark the International Anti-Corruption Day is being held at the All African Conference of Churches here in Nairobi. And our reporter, George Maringa, is there and now joins me with the latest. Maringa, what can you tell us about the conference?
Thank you very much, Betty. We are at the second People's Anti-Corruption Summit that is organized by the Kenya Human Rights Commission. And this is in lieu, or this comes 3 days before the world marks the Anti-Corruption Day that will be marked globally. And to give us a brief or what the event is about here today, I'm now joined by Davis Malombe, who is the Deputy Executive Director of the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. So this summit, it's called the Second People's Summit. When you say the People's Summit, what do you mean? Because looking around, I can see several groups of people, adorned in these T-shirts. What exactly is the People's Summit?
Okay, the People's Summit is a forum where people converge to discuss the emerging issues about corruption and also agree on how to enhance political accountability on the emerging challenges around corruption. The idea came up last year after the government also came up with the high-level state house summits, and one of which was on corruption, which was held in October last year. And we really felt that those summits, which were being organized by the government, were quite elitist, and the people were not getting the space to also give their perspectives. And that's why now as civil society, we also came up with also the idea of having a parallel People's Forum, where now people can really articulate their issues and be able to give their position on what is supposed to be done. So that's why this year we are organizing the second one, and we are going to be organizing those ones as we move forward. The one for last year was held on the 9th of December at Government House, but the one for this year is being held today because now we have other activities before the end of the week. So this is also being normally organized as part of our work to celebrate the International Day Against Corruption. So we are also having other activities which have been happening in the course of this week, and the climax will be the integrity walk, which is going to be happening on Saturday. So today we are expecting also people from the government, but now the major participants are normally the members of public, because this is their space to give their expression and also their position on what is supposed to be done on corruption. Yeah.
You had the first conference last year, or the first summit. This is the second. Do you think that your views or what you advocate for is really being put into account?
Oh, it is. Because what happens, in this forum, we also get duty bearers who get to respond to issues about corruption directly from the people. And we also come up with positions which are also used for policy advocacy in the course of the year. So it's both a forum for direct engagement, but it also gives us issues which we also formulate for further policy engagement in the following year. Yeah, so it helps a lot to also get people's perspective and also people's involvement in this kind of conversations, because it's the people who also suffer or pay the consequences of corruption, because corruption compromises the resources which are supposed to be used for economic and social development for this kind of people. So if you bring just leaders in the state of summits to just discuss these issues, then it becomes difficult, because it's the people who are supposed to be giving ideas on what is supposed to be done. So today we also expect people from the government, like the DPP, which is responsible for prosecution. We're also expecting actors for the Ethics Commission, among others, where now we are going to be engaging directly with them. You remember the first one last year in State House, it was almost government to government. But now this is now people to government. So our work is just to create that space where people can engage with duty bearers on the kind of issues affecting them.
And probably the final question, Mr. Malombe, is that corruption has been seen whereby it's only the huge corruption, if I could say, and people don't focus on sort of the petty corruption. In your view, what especially needs to be done now that corruption has become a menace in this country?
Yeah, as actually we also focus on what we call grand official corruption, because that's where we experience massive plunder, waste of public resources. And these are the resources we are saying are supposed to be used for public accountability and also development. So I think the problem with grand official corruption is lack of political goodwill and interest to confront that problem. Because we have seen in so many situations whereby people are universally mentioned in the report, but there is no goodwill to hold them to account or goodwill to also push them out of the position they hold.
So you think by this summit, there will be these people who will be put to book, as you say?
So actually, through this summit, we'll be able also to get a public commitment from the people to be pushing for accountability in the countries where they come from. Because of late, we have also seen what we are calling devolved corruption, where there's also massive loss of resources within the county assembly and also within the offices of governors. This will also governors them to be able also to hold the county government to account, because that's also where a lot of money is getting lost. And this is also money which is supposed to be devoted for their development. But they're also going to be part of the national conversations and also national engagements in the fight against corruption. Because this one, because it's a political problem, it also requires the participation and the pressure from the people who are directly affected by this kind of criminal activity in the country.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Davis Malombe, who is the Deputy Executive Director of the Kenya Human Rights Commission, who have organized this People's Summit, People's Anti-Corruption Summit, 3 days before the world marks the World Anti-Corruption Day, which will be held on the 9th of December. Back to you, Betty.
Judge Maringa there reporting. All right, from him we want to cross over shortly to the Intercontinental. I understand that there is a leather conference and the speaker right now is one Moses Ikiara. Let's just listen into a bit of what's happening there and then come back to the studio in discussion.
The opportunities, let me not spend more time on this. The key thing is that this is already being tested. You go into the portal, type the sector you are looking for or the county you are interested in, you can get all the investment opportunities in that sector or in that county. If you find one you are looking for, you can express interest. And when it is ready now with the feasibility study, it's bankable, you can get an alert to be told now you can submit your tender or you can submit your unsolicited bid for this opportunity. We will also be putting very many sector profiles which can help you to decide the areas you like to invest in. One-stop center, we have now government agencies in one physical space. When you come there, the first desk you see is you find Carinvest, you find EPCD, you find a Special Economic Zones Authority, so that when you say you give us a summary of your project or your idea, we can tell you the best, where you get the greatest incentives for this idea is EPCD, and then you can follow that line. If it's a Special Economic Zone, then you are directed how to move. And then you can register your company, get work permits, apply for connection to power, do all your tax issues in one space. And the team is a team is getting better and better to serve you jointly. We've also developed a national policy to look at the holistic picture of investing. Which areas are we not getting enough incentives? Which areas are we getting various challenges and dealing with them? So this policy is also a way of improving business environment. Dispute resolution, like you know, invaluable anywhere, even in, I think there's no country where business people don't get into dispute now and then. The critical thing a country can do or a government can do is to put in a mechanism to help dispute resolution. So we are a member of the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. That gives you, and this system is working. Actually, Kenya has one case there in the mining sector. So the instruments are working. It's not just for show. We have also signed up MIGA, from the World Bank Group. We have an African Trade Insurance Agency, which can give you can take out a policy. If your risk appetite is very low, you can just take that policy for commercial and non-commercial risk. And we are also signing a lot of what we call IPPAs, investment promotion and protection agreements with various countries, again to give investors comfort. Courts themselves, the court is now reaching out to people and regularly listening to court users so that they can tell them what are the delays and other challenges, the uncertainty, the suspected corruption or something, so that the court listens to the court users' views and then can reform and continue improving service provision. This, I think, is one of my last strengths, is the institutions that are there to support you in the leather sector. So we are there ourselves as Kenya Invest. We have Kenya Leather Development Council. We have the Export Processing Zones Authority. Fanuel is here, the CEO. We have a Special Economic Zones Authority. CEO will be joining us later on, I'm sure. All these agencies are there, plus what you heard from industry associations. So with that combination, you have people taking care of you from your sector, from the industry, and from the government. Within that kind of combination, I think nothing will be a problem. If you find something not working, you know within a quarter, at the longest, you have a chance to go and talk about that in a presidential roundtable to say this is not working and it is solved. In fact, I would say personally I've seen over the last 3 or so years, many issues that were quite problematic are able to be sorted through this kind of arrangement within a very short time. So we are not telling you there are no problems here at all. There are no challenges. What the message we are really passing is that we have mechanisms to deal with the problems that will invariably arise from time to time. If you don't believe me, I hope you believe these international people. You know Richard Branson, you know Mr. Stephen Hayes, who was the president of the Corporate Council on Africa in the US until a couple of months ago. I think he returned last year. You know, of course, Madame Lagarde, who is the boss of IMF. They have nice about Kenya.
All right, so that's the Leather Investment Conference. We'll be getting the latest from our reporter on the ground. But for now, I want us to continue with our discussion that we had started earlier. And remember, it has everything to do with that statement that was released by Raila Odinga's advisor, Salim Lon. He says that he is indeed ready for dialogue. And it's an interesting statement, and maybe we'll have some snippets of it. Coming back to our studio discussion, and we've had a long break with the issues that have been taking place. But going back to that to that statement, I was quizzing you on the fact that Raila is saying that, he wants a dialogue that is close to what happened in 2008. Yes. Is that an undertone for kind of government that we had back then that solved that political solution crisis that we had at that time?
I think before we go back to that discussion, I'll want to say that it's very unfortunate that we have seen young people being in caskets going to be buried because of police brutality. We don't need to go that low. We need to have a conversation as to whether we need we need reforms in the police so that human rights can be respected. Seeing young people losing their lives because exercising a right to demonstrate is very unfortunate. Now, going back to your question, in 2008, there was political willingness because of what had happened between 2007 and 2008. There were massive loss of lives. And so the international community was on the neck of the leaders in the country to actually have a conversation. So the conversation had to happen either way. Now, if you look at that time and this time, there is a lot that has happened. Kenyans have grown. Kenyans know what is right and what is wrong. Kenyans have developed different ways of agitating for rights while protecting their lives. If you remember, in 2007, there were tribal clashes, which were random all over the country and which actually were put Kenya on a bad image. Now, that has not transpired, even though we have big differences politically in the August election and 26th election. The number of deaths has reduced tremendously, and there have been intertribal friendship in that people are not killing each other on the basis of coming from this political divide. And I think that is a good thing for our country. And I think that is what is making these politicians to hold on to their hard stance. Like Jubilee thinks that, this thing cannot escalate beyond this. And I think they're mistaken, because I think we don't need to take chances with conversations, and it's free to have dialogue. It's not like it's going to diminish the kind of office that they've already been given.
All right.
It's going to actually generate a discussion. And as you've seen, Salim Lon, the Jubilee, the NASA spokesperson, has demonstrated that the conversation be limited to electoral justice. It's obvious from...
Isn't that like leaving it to like a whole wide spectrum? Electoral justice covers so much. Does it mean electoral justice for the year 2022 when we have our next election, or what?
No, I think it's electoral justice now. What has transpired now. Remember, we have been in an electioneering period. So I don't think whether it's for 2022. 2022 is 5 years from now. We're looking at what transpired last time, and we need justice for the process. There are those values that stipulated under Article 10 of the Constitution. NASA are saying that the electoral body, that is the IEBC, mandated to conduct election in this country, did not conduct that election in conformity with or adherence to the law. And we have seen the court process go through and justify the process, but there is the political aspect, the acceptability, the legitimacy. Those are very important issues that need to be conversed on. Otherwise, we'll have and trust me, this situation will recur in 2022 if we don't have the conversation right now, if we don't set the way forward right now, if we don't ask ourselves, where did the rain start beating us from? Why is this almost half of the Kenyan population dissatisfied with the process of IEBC? Once we answer that question, then we can be able to find a solution to that problem. But if parties do not want to have a conversation, and you've seen NASA say that they will swear in the Raila Odinga as president. The effect of that is that there will be more polarization. We do not want that. The leaders should actually lower their egos. And I think the president stated during his inauguration that he intends to bring the country together.
All right.
It's unfortunate that I have not seen him consoling the families of the people who lost their lives to police brutality. But he needs to demonstrate to Kenya. You don't even just state in your speech. You demonstrate through action. We need to see him extend a hand of invitation to the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, to come and sit down and have this conversation.
But the question that, even the supporters of Jubilee and even the president and, other leaders drawn from that political divide are asking is that, was President Uhuru Kenyatta validly elected as per the Constitution? I would like to hear you answer that.
I think that is a question that we'll take 2 hours to discuss about. But I'll say this. Legitimacy is a very important aspect in any democracy. Ours is a very young democracy, and if you look at the new constitution that we promulgated in 2010, almost covered every aspect of the political divide, in that we provided a clear outline as to how presidential elections are supposed to be conducted, who should conduct that election. We provided IBC with certain powers to ensure that the process is transparent, open, with integrity, and to be appreciated by all. But if you look at what has transpired is that the judiciary declared its decision, but the decision was not actually accepted by the people. As a president, the question you need to ask yourself...
But which people? Because it was not accepted by, not the whole country,
the
but
legal process had to take place.
Yeah.
The legal process had to take place. What is important is, even though the legal process justified that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has been elected president, legitimacy has certain ingredients. It has acceptability. It has the ingredient of people agreeing to, accepting to lose favor in a contest. If people feel like the contest was not fair from the beginning, then there's a question of whether they can trust the outcome of that contest. And that is the big question. Do people accept the outcome of that contest? No, because they think the neutral player, that is the IBC, did not conduct the process with the integrity and without any external manipulation from the sitting president and all that, they believe, and you can agree with me that almost half of the country believes that the process was not conducted well. And we should not assume the fact that Raila Odinga actually decided to not participate in that election.
All right,
we cannot put that in the shelf.
But the fact that, you have half of the country disagreeing.
Yes.
But you also have half of the country saying that indeed, their leader, their preferred leader was validly elected. So what happens to this other side?
Now, that is the question now we need to have. Why is it that if you remember in 2002, when we had, when Moi regime was leaving office, there was Kenyans were passionate to vote in Mwai Kibaki. There was that natural acceptance that Mwai Kibaki got the vote of the people. There's that acceptance from the people that we have a new president. That is what we expect from a democracy. Even those people who did not vote for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta should be saying that the process was fair. We tried our best, but we did not succeed. Now, that is not the question as regards to 26 election. First, the very important issues that we need to look at there. There is the issue of Raila Odinga deciding not to participate, but IEBC went forth and conducted an election. That is a very critical issue. When a person who commands almost half of the support from the Republic decided to opt out from an election.
But IEBC at the same time cannot force, they could not force him to run.
It cannot. Actually, if you look at the Constitution, it was very clear, and even the Supreme Court judgment was clear that we need to have an election within 60 days. And if you go back in 2013, after the promulgation of the new constitution, we stated that an election should be conducted after every second Tuesday of August, after every 5 years. But it did not happen in August 2012 as it was required by the Constitution. We pushed the election to 2013, March. Why? Because we were not prepared, and the law, we navigated the law to actually extend that period. What was so wrong extending the period of 60 days, even though the Supreme Court had declared for purpose of preparedness? Now, and we have argued this before. What is more important? Is it complying with the law in terms of the period of conducting the election, or is it complying with the integrity, the basic tenets provided for under sections Chapter 6 of the Constitution, national values under Article 10? We need to ask ourselves what was more important, because the integrity of the process and ensuring that both parties are comfortable into the election was critical in the outcome. Because if the people were confident in the process, then they will have no option other than to say, no, the outcome was conducted well, and this is the result. So that conversation we need to have a conversation as to whether the legitimacy of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will really stand the test of time for the 5 years.
All right.
Yes.
We'll come back and continue the conversation. Tell us what you think. Hashtag is News Center at Betty M. Kello. That's my Twitter handle. We'll take a short commercial break, but we're back in a few minutes.